Boom! Live and alive on the tube, in the tube again with Arthur and Fiona. How are you guys?
Well, you.
Okay, waking up.
Great. Yeah, great. Now, tonight we're going to do this a little bit different. It's still the cult of oops. There's many oops. But tonight we're going to take a oops in the dark side, like the dark side of the moon, the dark web. We hear so many things back. So a lot of fairy tales also associated with all the dark stuff. But we hear a lot about the dark stuff, the dark web. Like I told you, the dark web is not something that I've really never went on, but I heard about, and I'm curious to know what's going on in there. Like the shadow government, the black pope. They call it the black pope. I think it's a bit another stereotype of black and white. Anyway, the dark pope. Let's call it the dark pope.
The dark side,
The dark
vampires,
side, Star Wars, Star Trek, and
zombies.
name it. Yeah, Scooby Doo. It's all in our face. So maybe you can extend, guys, on that tonight. The dark stuff, the dark stuff related to all those oops that we make constantly, from maybe cult to cult, because also in the world culture, which is what they want us to preserve a lot, is our culture, But there's also the word torture culture, the cult, the your the so yeah, so maybe you can bring this all together and make us a nice presentation as usual.
Just briefly, is that the series is called Duality, the Cult of Hoops. Now, the duality is the light and the dark. If you bring it back to an everyday practical sense, it's the man and another man inside our heads. So we're now talking about the intentions of the man that we are, and the intentions of another man inside our heads, and how that plays out. So that is where everything is happening, and this is what Fees and I are going to be talking about, how we nurture these things, and we want to bring everything back to an everyday practical sense. How does it actually apply in everyday life, in our everyday lives? So when we talk about Freemasonry, Satanism, the occults, when we talk about the dark side, or we talk about the Black Pope, we've got to look at how does it actually apply in an everyday practical sense, where each of us is waking up in the system and living our lives in the system, and how it's impacting us and how we impact with it each day. Because if you can bring it back to an everyday practical sense and how it applies, the veil, everything is opened up. You can see it all. And that's what
And you then have some power to do something about it. If all that dark stuff and whatever seems to be this out of reach, mythical, Hollywood, whatever, you don't have any power to do anything about it because it's not there. But if you can see how you play it out in your life every single day and how you contribute to the whole energy of this darkness, etc., then you have power to do something about it. And
exactly.
You can take steps in your everyday practical life.
Meaning, we are looking at fantasy and the illusion and the delusion of fantasy, and how we are in denial or in states of apathy or lost in multitude, plethoras of distractions, where confusion and other things play out, and where we don't want to look at what's staring at us in plain sight, how this is impact. So we to withdraw, because everything about the Love for Life work is about withdrawing from the system of this dark side and returning to reality. So withdrawing from fantasy, returning to reality, meaning it's what Fee was talking about in some of the other videos about, you have to have scrutiny. You have to observe every thought in your head. You've got to look at everything and how it sits. And if is it part of the fantasy where we've accepted the lie of that fantasy as part of our reality, and so we are nurturing the lies of the dark side, that are the emotions. And if we nurture these emotions, which is what we're focusing on in today's video, then everything that's happening around us that is we consider not right, wrong, where like we talk about the coronavirus and all the byproducts of that, or 9/11, or general everyday economic issues or political issues, and whatever comes up in television and media and in social media, whatever it is that makes us react. We have to learn to recognize the manipulation of those emotions and withdraw from it. So I guess we just go for it.
Well, I just wanted to say, I think it's really important to remember that nothing in the system is there by accident. So while the supposed powers that be that are in the front line that we see every day may be, oh, dreadful, we got this dark web where the criminals can activate. Dreadful, we have these, vampire themes overtaking our teenagers. Dreadful, but they rely on those being there as part of that duality, that they can be seen to be offering the good. We stand for justice, we stand for peace, we stand for this. And they need to act off that against things like the dark web, the Black Pope, conspiracy theories, the Illuminati, whoever you want. They both are there for a reason in the system. It's not like, and much as they like to give the impression that, hey, we're the good guys and we're fighting these bad guys. No, not at all. Without the so-called bad guys, they wouldn't need to be doing their good guys thing. So everything that's allowed to flourish in the system is allowed for a reason.
Exactly. Going back to what the judge said to Fiona, man is the highest power, but man subjugates himself under the law to have order. Now, that subjugation is ongoing. It's repetitive. We have to continue subjugating to what's coming at us. You get that? So it's because then their law can be applied to the effects of what's coming at us from the dark side that they want to be there. They have the law and them have to have it there. So we are consistently under subjugation, breathing in, breathing out, day after day, 24/7, through all our lives, our kids' lives, our grandchildren's lives. If that's unless we wake up, because man is the highest power. Nature, the true undefined man, the man who's not been subjugated, the man who's not got another man inside their head, but man chooses to be subjugated. So now we have this stuff coming at us
that we choose to let affect us all the time.
We choose to let us affect us. So it's constantly. So that means we have to have their law constantly coming at us all the time. And then they have their order, because their order is their power and control. So while we continue to be manipulated by the dark side through the emotions that we are reacting to, and where most of us are unconscious of that, though many think they do, but they don't. Otherwise, they wouldn't be in the system. They wouldn't be involved in anything to do with the system. They'd have been completely withdrawn, because the whole system is this stuff playing out in every possible way they can pull it off, so that their law, their power, their authority, their Pax Romanus, their fake peace treaties amongst us all, where we have all broken wills and we are subjugated by this enforcement of darkness. Right, look at all the newspapers, all the shit that happens is played out in the media, all the Hollywood movies and all the shit's played in Hollywood movies, all the dramas played out in the Supreme Court and in the local courts, and they're over divorce, and he did that and they did that and that crime and this and that. We are constantly being bombarded. Even fashion, defining a woman's image or a man's image and how we look, and all the byproducts of that. Sport with first and last, whose team's going to win, and all that is played out. This is all part of that darkness manipulating us. So you look at commercials, for example, you'll see like beer commercials. You see these young people, strong, healthy people, they're in nature, they've climbed some great mountain or rock side, and they're sitting there cracking a beer and they're all smiling. And the beer is the dark side, because it's a spirit, right? It's not natural. There's nothing natural about it. And then you look at Coca-Cola or Pepsi commercials or any other kind, or McDonald's with the fantasy of Ronald McDonald.
happy, smiling,
happy,
laughing.
smiling. You
Look
know,
what our food will do
where
for
the
you
dark
when
side
it's
is the
killing
actual
you.
food and the whole thing. So this duality is manipulating us all. These occultists are manipulating us all the time. So we are jumping through the hoops of all their cults, because the cults is the system structures of a herd of all of us who accept the power of that authority to rule us, as we jump through the cult. Because while we are jumping through the hoops, we are being subjugated. So that's that subjugation that's constantly happening to us all the time. So they have to relentlessly bombard us with this darkness, this emotion, constantly. So we can be constantly subjugated, so that we can be constantly under their law, so we can be constantly under the power of their order. So they as vampires, as an analogy, can suck and siphon our fruits of labor and absorb everything of our follow through of what we do with our life energy.
You know, it's
Fiona,
amazing.
hold on a second.
Yeah.
Fiona, before, when she was talking, she was saying that if we can come to recognize all the dark stuff, then we can do something about it. It lingered in me, and I was like, yeah, we can do something about it. I agree with you. But in what way? That's my question. Because many of times when it comes to like changing something within yourself or outside of yourself, it's a big deal. Like you feel very powerless and stuff. And especially when it comes to changing the world, like my mother always told me, you're never gonna change the world. Everybody discouraging us, telling us that we cannot change the world. So it's impregnated in our heads that nobody here is going to change the world. So in what way, Fiona, were you, I want you to extend your thoughts on this, because make it a bit more clear, maybe for the ones who listen, in what way we can do something about it. Because even me here, I look at this big picture, and it's like, what can I do? Okay, I'm doing something. I'm speaking out. I put out some videos on YouTube and that, but that's only going to touch a small amount of beings here compared to how many we are. So how can we come to change this? Because if every one of us come to do a little thing in their own home, we can come to change the whole. But how do we get to change every beings here and get them to feel powerful instead of powerless in the face of the tyranny that we are living in?
Well, I think there was something I was thinking, I will get back to you, was something I was just thinking when Arthur was talking. You know, you can take a seed from an oak tree, a mighty, huge, powerful oak tree, and you can plant that. In the art of bonsai, you know, they grow that to be a little tiny tree like that, but they have to constantly keep doing things to it, keep wiring the branches, keep doing this, keep it so the roots can't grow, just keep compressing everything to stop that seed growing to its full potential to be a huge oak tree. So they have an oak tree that's this big, or an elm tree that's this big, anything. So, but what the point is, they have to keep at it. If they then let that bonsai, they plant it in the ground, it'll never grow to be the mighty oak tree, but it will still grow a lot bigger than the tiny bonsai that it was forced to be. So in the same way, everything of the system that's coming at us is designed to keep us as a bonsai. And it has to be constant. It has to be constant, because our nature is to be much more than that. Just as the oak tree, the oak seed is nature is to be much bigger than a little bonsai tree. But so they have to keep working at us all the time through every single avenue of the system to keep compressing us, to keep sustaining us, to keep can't think of the right word, just to keep us contained, keep containing the natural nature of who we really are. Now, you said, what do we do? One, anything you want to do is a step. The thing is, you should never doubt your ability to actually do something. Like when you sit and say, oh, but all I'm doing, okay, I'm talking and I'm doing your gardening and stuff like that, they're all steps. but it's to not have doubt that your steps can make a change to everything. And no, we can't change the world because the world is the system, and we don't want to change the system. We just want to get rid of the system. We want to turn away from the system, and that is the power. But it starts with the thoughts in our heads that keep us chained up to the system. So this is why we keep coming back to say, you've got to keep looking at how everything is coming at you and your reactions to it, because the biggest power in the end is just to walk away from it all. Give it no energy, give it no life. And that is, and get back to going nature. So we start to become the bonsais that can start to spread out again, start to grow, start to get back into our real lives as part of nature and start expanding. So that comes back to what we were always talking about, getting together in communities, living, growing food, so we can start to gradually move away from the system. And the more we move away from it, and eventually, I mean, we use the media, social media, we're using all this right now, but eventually, no, we don't want to use any of that. The less you tune into it, the less energy you give it, the more it will disappear from your life, and the more you will be the bonsai unwrapping the wire from your branches and starting to reach up to the skies again. And we will never probably get to the full potential because we have been so contained and subjugated. But as the generations go, if we have that intention to put that out, they can more and more realize their true potential till they become the huge, massive oak trees again of man, man's true potential.
Magnificence.
Yeah.
The thing is, we have to stop being entertained by the system. Because that's the key. While we remain entertained by the system, we continue being in and of the dark side, meaning the emotions of doubt, uncertainty, distrust, fear, loneliness, emptiness, weakness, hopelessness, directionlessness, right? And on it goes. All these emotions is what we are feeding or what we are nurturing. Now, it's either we continue to be entertained, so we keep defaulting to the system, to social media, to reading and going to work and paying taxes and doing all these things, or you say, I refuse to support the dark side anymore. I'm no longer going to participate in this game, in this racket, meaning I'm not going to let the snake continue to call around the forbidden tree of seducing me into being entertained by the lies of coronavirus, by the lies behind 9/11 that keep me entertained, keep me glued into the suspense and the thriller and everything else that happens, where all my energy is feeding the dark side. So the only thing to do is to completely go all of it and just go back to nature and start co-creating with nature. And as long as we are conscious that we're not entertaining the emotions, the shadow world, the underworld, the dark side, the black pope, these themes everywhere, as long as we are conscious that these emotions are not influencing our actions, are not manipulating the dreams that form our future actions.
How do we get to know that it's not affecting us? Like, you might think that you are not under the spell, but you are always. Like, it's so deep.
You know you're breaking away when you stop using the car, when you stop using petrol, when you stop using the internet, when you stop using the water coming through the metered pipe.
Also,
so you have
emotions.
to put you have to put a concerted effort in to say, okay, I'm using my willpower, my determination, use what I can assist it to completely withdraw and do it with others who are committed to this, who don't want to play out the theatrics of the dark side amongst each other. That's when you're returning to reality. You're breaking away from fantasy. You stop jumping through the hoops of the cults. You're breaking away and taking full responsibility for your life. You're not giving away that responsibility to them, where they maintain their law and order.
But also the big thing is the emotions. You observe your emotions, because you'll find the more you are prepared to actually look honestly at how the emotions control you and how you nurture them, the more you can start to let them go, and you will find yourself calmer. You will find yourself that things do not affect you nearly as much. Like, we all have stories throughout even the system of people who've been imprisoned for 14 years, and because they've had it together up here and not given into the emotions, they walk out of that experience and even thank their jailers because they have made the most of their situation and they haven't allowed themselves to be overcome by despair and hopelessness and all this. They've stayed strong. And the more you learn to notice how the emotions control you and start making a decision that no, and making a choice every time, go, no, I'm not going to let that emotion jump in and spoil me. Like, no, like if someone says something to you and you feel an emotional reaction come up in you, you got to be prepared to go, hang on, was that actually to do with what that person said to me, or was it actually I'm dragging the past of my experience with me and therefore I always react like that when someone says something like that to me, which is what we mostly do. Mostly what the person has said to us has got nothing to do with our emotional reaction. It's just the baggage we're dragging with us makes us go like this or whatever.
Well, that's the continuation of that subjugation of the dark side that we recall.
But it's, if this is a vital part, we got to be prepared to look at those emotional reactions, examine them, notice where they came from. Oh, that's why. And stop feeding it. Stop doing it. I'm not going to say that nasty retort that came out of my mouth was about to come out of my mouth, because I realized that wasn't the intention of what someone said to me. And I realized it's just coming from my own emotional stuff. It's literally that nitpicky. You've got to be prepared to really examine where your emotions are coming from, what they came to, and stop practicing them. It's like Arthur's always saying, we've been practicing being slaves for generations and generations.
To the dark
we
side.
have no practice at being free, at being responsible for our emotions, being responsible for our lives. We have to practice. And that means if you want to change a habit, you've really got to work at it. You know, if you want to change your habits in your daily life, you have to make an effort, because it feels natural to you to continue with the habits you want to change. So it feels awkward to start trying to do new habits, but you have to be prepared to go with it. Okay, it's going to feel strange when I stop reacting like this and that, because this is my habit. You got to change your habits, your emotional habits.
Because
there's a lot of people that prefer to die than change their habit, and many things.
Absolutely. There are people who prefer to die rather than change the food they eat. You know, they literally prefer to eat themselves to death on unhealthy stuff than to change what they eat and choose life. And you're right. People prefer to be unhappy than to deal with what's making them unhappy.
So as part of this, we are all of us raised in the system. We have all around us, though there's not as many of us, we have this intelligence networks within intelligence networks. It's hierarchical in that world. And the thing, their job is to bring forward their politicians, to bring forward their rock stars, to bring forward their Pied Pipers, to bring forward whatever it is that can provide, enchantments, what appeals to us, that would seduce us into remedies that they are standing for as the mantras of that Pied Piper. But you've got to realize that unless we can see the bigger picture, we will just go to one election to change the politician for another politician because it resonates better, because we've been manipulated, right? And yet 3-4 years later, we go to another election, and then to another election, or we go from Deepak Chopra to the Dalai Lama to Eckhart Tolle to whatever, Oprah Winfrey. There's so many different things, and all the time the emotions are being manipulated. The dark side of us is being manipulated by them, because we bring it with us, because we pass the responsibility over to them, who are entertaining us with what they are going to do for us. But we actually don't live it. So the freedom of our true life is not there. It's passed over and played out into the politics. It's played out into the Constitution. It's played out into the public service. It's played out into the police and everything else. And so we continue supporting the dark side because of that confusion. Because the confusion is the emotion. But it's not just confusion. It's uncertainty. It's distrust. It's fear. It's doubt. And it's also, these things play out in so many different ways in our heads. So even though we talk about these things and we want to share videos, unless each of us can stop and go, I do not want to be manipulated anymore by these subjugations on offer. Because if we accept it, we subjugate under their influence, which then brings the law and the order with it, because we still need the system to protect this fantasy freedom, this fantasy public society that we believe will make us all win. It can't. It never will. Look, this is why I've said in some of the writings is that we can go right back since the system started and look for every single amazing man or woman or group who rose up and came up with the most wonderful philosophies or the most wonderful insights into life, or where they inspired through religious means bringing forward saviors and messiahs, and or whether it's in the Industrial Revolution off the back of their occults, where they brought forward all these amazing inventions, right? And everything, how it's all unfolded in this progress of civilization, of this subjugation. The point is, here we are today, in spite of that background of all that history, we are in a far worse state. We're almost in a complete apocalyptic earthwide devastation now. And yet another thing to look at is what I've mentioned in some of the other videos. Every generation has good-hearted men and women, parents who love their children, who love their community, love everything about life. And every generation has them, including our generations and the ones coming after us. But look at this mess. Look at this earthwide mess. And the reason it's happening is because everyone, going right back, we're nurturing the dark side. We're nurturing the doubt, the uncertainty, the distrust, the fear, because we don't trust our children. We don't trust the babies we create in the womb. And so we define them. So that meant we had to define women into what a woman was. So a woman is told what a woman is, how a woman should look, how a woman should be, how she dresses, how she behaves, and even down to her sexuality. Now, that has a woman raise a child in her womb, and she's already defining the child in the womb. And the partner, who's a man raised by a woman, is also defining the child in the womb. And so all these prerequisites of subjugation is already happening to us as those children in the womb. And we're doing it to our kids because it's all predetermined. And it all comes from uncertainty, distrust, doubt, fear. It comes from even today where women want to have children because they want to get extra government handout payments, or they want to have children because they want to be seen as a woman in the society amongst other women when they socialize at their coffee shops or whatever they're doing, and they have conversation they can talk about. They've got something to discuss. Look, what I'm getting at, to break away, to know that you're breaking away, is for us to be able to be aware that we stop defining children. And in doing that, we stop allowing others defining us, so that the subjugation stops. Because it's only because we are impressing other people with our ideas. This includes us doing these chats. Our intention is not to subjugate. Our intention is to reveal how the subjugation works. But what we're trying to say is we have to start operating out of certainty, out of non-confusion. So a woman doesn't have to dream about the child and how the child is going to be based on what she expects the child to be, because that's what she's dreaming for. We don't place any emotion on the womb of the child, and we're living in amongst groups of other brothers and sisters who do that. And if we do that, we sever this subjugation practice, this horrific ritual sacrifice.
I like when you say practice. That's exactly what I was going to bring to you. That subjugation thing that we are engaging in, we are very good at it. I would say we are great at subjugating ourselves to them and to the system and all that. Okay? We have been practicing it. So something you practice is over time. And this is a lifetime of practice to subjugate yourself to that system. But my question is there a specific age related? Because I'm wondering where exactly in my programming along the way, let's say from 0 to 5, 5 to 10, 10 to 15, 15 to 20 years old, 20 to 25, let's pack them in group of 5 years, where in there I've got the most intensive training to subjugate myself. Because I remember from 16, I started, 15, 16, I started to sense something crooked in here. Didn't know what. I was still very much in the dark side, and still today, but today at least I can see it. But I'm wondering where exactly in my life, in our life, my example is good for anyone that's been subjugating themselves. So what age exactly are we intensively programmed to accept that subjugation, or if it's all your life?
There isn't, Jared, because there is no time. See, the belief in time already is a fantasy, and that is emotion playing out on you.
Okay, but I was a baby once.
Yeah, but you're, look, another way to look at it, it's like, for example, if you're brainwashed into a religion, you believe in one God, one power, right? You can easily, because you've assimilated that kind of picture in your head, you can accept one man acting as the representative of that God in the religion, right? So when you talk about time and age, if you accept time, you'll also accept the time of the subjugation in every area of your life, but you may choose to ignore some parts of it because you think it's less than other parts, right? For example, when you walk into a forest and your head is spinning with 1, 2, 3, 4, and you're looking at 1 tree, 2 tree, 3 tree, 4 tree, 5 tree, 6 tree, 7 tree, you can easily eliminate number 7 tree or number 2 tree because you can't sense the reality of what the purpose of every tree is in the forest and what its place, what it's doing. So unless we can commune with the tree and the tree tell us, yes, you can take me down and use me, we don't know what reality is. So when you're asking for time, blocks of 5, it's the same stuff. There is no way to know where it started and where it ended because it happened. The only thing you can do is here and now where we are is to go, okay, I recognize how the subjugation works. I recognize how I am complicit in supporting subjugation on my children and those around me, and on the life of the man, the vessel. So if I'm aware of those things, I can start to consciously look at my thoughts, what he's saying, listen and listen, look at our thinking, and withdraw. And don't give our energy, not in fear. We don't react. We don't react and get caught up in the emotions of those reactions. Just simply, I have free will. I choose to support the subjugation here and now. And if you do it here and now, then all past and future has been stopped as well. All of it's gone. Now, look, I can only talk from this man's vessel. The suffering of the vessel, what was done to the vessel of this man, those imprints of those intentions will still resonate in the body. Now, whether that peace and calm can be restored to this body of all, so that that suffering doesn't play out, I don't know. But unless I stop reacting and stop getting caught up in all the stuff, I will never know what that peace and calm is, and I will allow what was done to the vessel to continue reacting my behavior. So I'm subjugated by pain. I'm subjugated by blame. I'm subjugated by a whole plethora of things, including searching for remedy, searching for others to fix it. You know what I mean? So I had that 2-week sleep in 2012. When I woke up out of that 2-week sleep, I went through many weeks of this incredible peace and calm like a child, as if I had only just been born. So if I could experience that, and that was really happened, it was a profound experience for me in 2012, discussed in other videos going back. We all can do it, but I just don't know how much. I don't have the answers to each of us, because we're all different, as to what we will arrive to as an experience, not influenced by all that dark side, that's manipulating us and having us, recall again and again and again the suffering, the pain, all those things, which is what the dark side wants us to do.
If you, as I said before about the bonsai and your question about when's the most subjugation, for the bonsai to really be contained and be the perfect bonsai, which is this miniature tree, it's constant. It never stops. It stops from how they plant the seed, and it carries on right until that bonsai dies, unless it is planted and is allowed to grow more. The same with us. We are constantly, throughout the whole of our system lives, we have to be constantly subjected to this darkness, to the emotions, constantly forced to focus on the emotions and to keep nurturing all that dark stuff. Because as soon as that stops, we'll forget it and we'll be gone, and we'll start becoming the oak tree again. Because
okay, yeah,
because if just imagine in your life if suddenly all social media stopped, all news, TV, magazines, book, you no longer knew what was happening over there in some far off place, and your world would become so local, and would take all your focus, and you would actually forget all that other stuff going on. But they can't have that because it is locally where we are powerful. What are you doing? You are growing food in your garden. That is a powerful thing to do. And you're doing it. You can only do that locally. You can't be going across and thinking about Iraq and growing food in Iraq. And so that is partly why we have this whole globalism happening, where we are constantly being told to focus. Look what's happening over there. Look what's happening over here. Look at this. Look at that. So we don't get local and focus locally. And just imagine if everything just fell apart. All the people around you in your local area would then be the people that you were co-creating with, and that would be it. Now, that's the power in that is huge, because you can start collaborating and everyone's focused. No one's drifting off to here, there, the other, video game fantasy, Hollywood fantasy,
going to school,
school fantasy. Everyone's power would be, okay, what are we doing here and now? Obviously we need food, right? Let's start growing food. Someone's got some fruit trees. Great. Let's make sure we nurture them. Someone else has space to grow lots of tomatoes. Let's make sure they've got what they need. Someone else needs some garden beds. Let's do that. The power of that is enormous.
Yeah. So these are themes. These are actual themes we've been talking about going right back. You'll see them in many, many of our videos about everything local. We all live local. The power is local, which means here and now. So the more we divest our energy into creating abundance, so we don't operate out of uncertainty. We don't give an F about the law anymore, about this and that, and what they're going to tell us to do. We just do it anyway, because we're not harming anyone. We're not committing crimes. We're not injuring anyone. We are so lost in the complicity and the acquiescence, where we have continually gave our energy to the dark side being our doubt, our fear, our confusion, our uncertainty, because that's only where it is. If we don't have it, then it doesn't influence us around us either. It's only because if we become in it that we become of it. So, that's why I've been saying for years, I'm in their world, but I'm not of their world. So I'm in their dark world, the system, but I'm not ruled by their world. So I can think and dream outside the box of that shit and talk about these insights since 2005 that are unraveled, because I had a determination, if you will. So this man, like I said, if a fat Greek walk like this man can do it, we all can do it. It's just nothing hard. It's simply, are you prepared to turn your back on the system? Are you prepared to walk away from the dark side? Are you prepared to let go of the Black Pope? Let go, it doesn't matter what you want, or Darth Vader, whatever it is you want to accept. Are you prepared to hold the dream of life of that oak tree and start creating that inspiration that we are, and start creating abundance without any of that dark side playing out in our heads, playing out through us, and playing it out with others around us in those relationships? So if we can take that full responsibility back, where we don't play the subjugation game, where we play the magnificence game where we share and create abundance. We go beyond the person, the self, where we're thinking about everybody else around us and making sure they all have everything they need, the basics of food, water, shelter. And with that, an undefined community of people not operating out of the dark side, then we all have it. Because if you come to the table creating that and everyone else comes to the table creating that, you've all got it here and now. So food forests, we have to restore nature, because the more we restore the food forests of nature, the more the dark side has receded from our lives, which means we're not going to be looking at suburbs and cities and skyscrapers and plastic and steel and all these things we recall of the dark side, because it's all of it is just harm and destruction we have caused to reality to hold up the dark side that we call the system and the suburbs and the streets with their numbers and their lots and their plots and the land title deeds and going to work to make money. This is the dark side, because it plays on your it plays on your uncertainty and your distrust and your fear about tomorrow. That's why they come at you all the time, even with coronavirus. I mean, look, we all been exposed to the themes of London during the war, when the German bombers were coming over and dropping the bombs and all the sirens going, and everyone's going, oh, we got to run, we got to go and hide. And it's real life. People, the bombs are going to come down and people are going to get killed. So that's coronavirus. Everyone's running and hiding and diving and ducking, because it's a war against all of us. It's not a war against the city of London or London. It's a war against all of us. And coronavirus is this, here comes the bombers, here comes the dark side. They're going to manipulate us with their Pied Pipers and their politicians and everyone else. We're all going to become cowards. We're all going to hide. We're going to whiver. God, please, we're going to survive and we're going to make it. You know, seriously, 9/11 is this. When you see these people do this, man, when you see all this shit, this is what it is. When you see all the Freemasonic stuff, I'm gonna in the video of this, I'm gonna add another 5 minutes or so of a video I found from someone else showing all the architecture of the Freemasonic world in Washington, D.C. Because I think it's appropriate, because it shows you how this dark side works in our everyday life. These are the people behind the media, behind the Pied Pipers, behind the churches, behind economics and banking, behind everything, because it is the dark side that needs to keep coming at us, you know, where the sirens go up of our reaction. We need safety. And the politicians say, right, we've got to have social distancing. We're going to have to start creating borders. And now people have to be blocked. Can't go from Queensland to New South Wales, and New South Wales to Queensland, or New South Wales to Victoria. Soon it's going to be areas, and we're going to close Sydney off. And we're going to, because the bombers are coming down, the terrible destruction.
And it's all for our own safety.
Our own safety. It's all good. So unless we can stop this manipulation in our heads and realize we stop living like this, we will be subjugated and we'll keep wanting their order, their law, and we will never, ever break away. So it means goodbye to their entertainment. Goodbye to entertaining fear. Goodbye to entertaining doubt, uncertainty, confusion, distrust. Meaning, I don't need to wake up to worry about having a roof over my head, to have money in my pocket so I can have food, water, shelter, and care for my family. That lie is incredible. And everyone is so complicit. All of us in the system are complicit to living this lie that feeds the darkness that we nurture with our compliance. We feed it because we've accepted it. So unless we can get outside the theater and get back to what's behind the theater screen, what's behind the directors and the producers who made the film that make us feel like the bombers are coming, they're dropping the coronavirus and COVID-19 on us, and all the things that are now happening and played out in the theater of a one world, terrified, everyone's being bombed. I mean, coronavirus is amazing. It's bombing every city in the world. We've got bombers coming in. I mean, it's unbelievable. But watch out, because Superman will appear in every city as a Pied Piper, and they're going to manipulate in your heads, and because you're still wanting them to fix and rescue it. So to bring it all back to an everyday practical sense, what do you do? Simply stop living in uncertainty. Stop living in distrust. Stop living in doubt. Stop living in the fear of these things. Stop being that little compressed oak tree. So are you willing to carry the full responsibility of that magnificence that you want to live? And if you do, then you are that oak tree. And the more you nurture that, you don't worry about everything else. You just be busy creating and sharing, because the oak tree shares everything of its life to all the birds and all the insects and the wind and the sunlight and the rain and everything of that whole forest of all the trees. And this amazing richness of life is happening because there is no dark side, meaning there is no self-obsession. There's no more what's in it for me. There's no more mine, I own, because we've already got it all. We're on land now. It's only the dark side that's been messing in our heads with the confusion of a terrible, distorted history they gave us, twisting everything from the Neanderthal man through the Big Bang theories and evolution and all this carbon dating crap and all this system science shit, because it is shit, because all of us has led us all to here we are right now. Where the siren is going off all across Earth saying, we need to be saved. We need to be rescued. And they're all going to come and offer you a one world economy, a one world cashless system where we're all going to be safe because they're going to be the Knights Templars protecting us, like in the Crusades during that bullshit story that they wrote up about it to protect all the Christians from the Muslims.
You know, one important thing I do think is what we do, like here and now, we're trained to live out of the past and into the future. So most of the time and it's including when we're having conversations with this, it's always about this happened, he said, she said, I said, we did this, we did that, we did the other. And it's all about, oh, this is going to happen, that's happening, this, that, and the other. We spend very little time actually present in the here and now to our emotional state and what is happening to us. Now, I think we all have occasions like when you just go and sit in the garden in the sun for half an hour and you're actually really aware of the sun on your face and the birds in the trees and the flowers growing, but it's rare. Most of the time our attention is so diverted anywhere but here and now in this moment, and that is also our power, is what am I nurturing here and now in this present moment? What's going on in me? It's not, oh great, I'm going to go and plant a veggie garden. That's not here and now. When you're in the garden planting, that's here and now, and that's what you focus on. But most of the time, we're not focusing on where we're at here and now. It's all about, I went, I this, I that. And that is vital, because that is how you start observing your emotions as well. Here and now, what am I living? Here and now, am I being that sunshine that I want to be? Or is that being the sunshine still, oh, I'm going to be the sunshine when I get my garden going and I'm going to give out veggies and I'm going to do this. But hang on a minute, here and now, what are you nurturing? What are you nurturing here and now?
Really, look, it's this thing, it's all about duality, which is again the theme of this series of videos. As above, so below. As within, so without. Right? Meaning, go back to that same example. If you can accept one God, you can accept one man to rule you, of the religion of that one God. So they create the enclosure of the one God, and they then provide the one man to keep you in the enclosure. And that is the psyops of this occultic practices. Now, if this lie was to wear thin, which it does, they have to come up with another one. So they've got to come up with, in this case, we have to come up with a world that needs to be saved, that we're all in danger of each other. So then they have to come up with a world of men and women who are going to help stop this from coming to extinction to all of us and save us all from this. And then that is an enclosure. And then they will maintain the order of that subjugation of all of us inside it. And that will be the Federation, just like in Star Trek. Right? So you have to be careful and smart about the psyops at play, because while all this dark side is playing out in our everyday lives now, as coronavirus being one of the classics, we also have all the Pied Pipers like the Max Eigans and the David Ikes, and there's thousands of these guys who are revealing everything of their grand plan and the future, because they operate in the past and the future, so that you can then be prepared, social engineered, to enter into the enclosure they are creating to keep you trapped in it as the next model of the cult, of the occults, where the power is still given away to the occultists, because they still believe that we need to be saved and we need them and they need us, because shepherds need sheep and sheep need shepherds, so we've been taught. So while we believe in one God, we need the one man representing one God. So you end up with Christianity and Roman Catholicism and Greek Orthodox and Russian Orthodox and all the derivatives of all these religions, and there's multi-thousands of them. But they're all in the system, trapped of the dark side, because it's only in the dark side where this shit plays out. You don't find these enclosures in nature, where children are raised by nature. It doesn't happen. You got to remember, it's a fiction. ABC 1, 2, 3 are fictions. Everything coming out of ABC 1, 2, 3 are fictions. Superman is not here and never will be here and now. But while we believe in Superman, we can perform the story of it, which means we have removed our lives from reality to fantasy, fall into fantasy. So while we accept the system of this dark side, we will continue to fall into money, commerce, economy, stock market. But it's just man in relationship to man. So the whole stock market is the bondage of man to man as the stock market. So we sell each other out. We trade each other. We use and abuse. The whole stock market is this, because there's nothing else exists. It's just man and nature, and man's true nature. So if we want to stop it all, we have to stop being used and abused as collateral, as commercial commodities. Stop believing in the lie of money. Stop accepting the idea that we need commerce, because then you need the whole system of all that to come with, including government and law and everything, to allow commerce to play out amongst each other. Now, if we say, fuck money, fuck it all, drop it now, life still goes on. The sun's still shining. The air's still there. Nature's still doing it. If we don't do the oak tree treatment and turn it into the bonsai of the whole of nature, where we're shutting everything down and we start freeing it up, we got it all. And we don't need money to have it. And we don't need to play the game of ownership. Remember, the one God, the one man, one ruler. You believe that you own land. You need a system of people to protect you for the land. And so there you're all in the boxes of land title deeds. And if you're in the uncertainty and you have been broken, your will is so badly broken that you operate the game of power, control, greed, and selfishness. What's in it for me? What's in it for me? That reaction, that dark side is what's behind pushing you, pushing us to play out the darkness in our everyday lives. You get what I'm saying? Because that's what we're working with. That's what we're nurturing. So this is what we're nurturing. So you have to have you've got to go, well, I just don't want to play this game anymore. Now, you can say, I'm dropping the system. At that moment, you're still breathing. The sun's still shining. Now, how can you operate with that magnificence that you have to practice and build up that skill set, so you're not operating out of the dark side anymore, where you're practiced in doing it, right? Where the sirens are going off, coronavirus, and you're not reacting anymore. I'm busy creating life here and now. So
after Fiona, the starting point of us moving away from all the dark stuff is really the emotional part of us. Like I don't like the word so much, but to master our emotional side of us, because that's a lot of bullshit in the world are generated from all of our emotions. So if we get, it's like you said, the dark side, but I was thinking a lot of Luke Skywalker in Star Wars when he goes see Yoda, and he wants to let go of the dark stuff, and he wants to really focus and pay attention, give attention and stuff. He goes and sees Yoda and starts training him, and it's really about controlling his emotional side to become a good Jedi. So is that pretty much what we should all do first?
Yeah, exactly. But what you notice, we get caught up in the self-obsession. So we're refeeding the dark side over and over and over again, because we're in the darkness, playing with the darkness without ever breaking away from. And we wonder why we've never had peace amongst us. It's because of this subjugation, this manipulation. So it's each of us has got to be responsible to say, I no longer want to play in the scripts or scriptures of whatever character that we have formed that plays in the system. So the name, the person, the man that we've been given as the birth certificate is it. Because if we stop representing that name, that man, that fiction, then it doesn't need the props. In this case, if we stop wanting to play Superman, then we don't need the props and everything staged by all the actors of Superman. We don't need to play it out anymore. So meaning, I don't need bankers. I don't need private corporations. I don't need the water board. I don't need the Supreme Court, the High Court, the local court. I don't need the police. I don't need the army. I don't need the schools and the preschools. I don't need Fox News, and I don't need CNN. I don't need all this social media, because that is all part of the script of the character that we form, that we send to perform on stage, predetermined by the occultists, because we are subjugated by their persuasion. Again, the snake around the forbidden tree. They have seduced us and continue to seduce us, to tempt us to get stuck in the dark side. So we don't get caught up in the emotions of uncertainty, distrust, and fear. Instead, we recognize it and say, oh, hello, I see you there talking, but I'm working with the magnificence. You say, thank you for visiting. Bye, and get back to the magnificence of uncertainty.
Could our subjugation start also in the crib? Like the other day, I was watching something, and in the crib, for our children, we always put that music with the thing that turn, and it's like La La Land, Fantasyland in your crib, and then you suddenly fall asleep. So is that form of subjugation?
Yes, when the baby's looking at the mother wearing high heel shoes, that's subjugation. When the baby looks at the mother wearing makeup, that's subjugation. When the baby looks at a mother dressed up in all these unnatural things that are not really real, it's subjugation. And the subjugation is the child going, this is who you're going to be if you're a girl or if you're a boy. Look, how we define babies is staggering.
It's like what you're talking about. Imagine the same thing. Your baby's lying peacefully under a tree, and what is keeping the baby's attention is just the play of sunlight on the leaves and the breeze. Now that's natural. So what we've come up with in the system, as usual, the system is always, an artificial version of nature. So those whirligig things people put around the cribs, they're just really the artificial version of a baby lying peacefully under a tree and just observing until it falls asleep.
But here's the big thing about it. The tree is part of the big picture of nature, and everything of nature the child is observing, whether it's the bee, bird, it's part of the big picture of nature. But when the child is observing a mother wearing makeup and high heel shoes and dresses and all those other clothes that mothers wear, it's connected to the system of the dark side. It's not connected to nature. So remember what I said to you about when you have to follow the bouncing ball in the song, in the video, right? Or when you have to follow the spell A, B, C, children repeat after me, A, B, C. Now we're going to put you under the spell. So every time the mother comes to the child, defining the child by color, by race, culture, creed, title, standings, ethnicity, etc., this is what we're doing to the baby. The baby is observing all the lies of the material physical forms of what a woman has been defined into, or what a man's been defined into. And this plays out into the bigger picture of the system, where everyone is on stage staging this dark side. It has no connection to nature. And then if you have laws that come with it, that if you step outside of it, you could be punished, and you could be ostracized, or you could be ridiculed and abused, and you can go through emotional torture or even sexual abuse or emotional abuse. These things play out. So it all starts in the womb.
And with all the emotional stuff, the baby's learning that right from the word go, because most couples have underlying emotional undertones in their relationships. There are very few that don't. And so even though
Well, explain
the
it.
husband,
Neediness, you know.
yeah, whatever, neediness, or a lot of couples, their relationship depends on each of them fitting certain roles, fitting in the boxes of how they've decided it's right for a partner to behave, etc. There's not a lot of real freedom in most relationships. It's very defined and very conditional as to what they both expect from each other. Now, the babies are sponges. They absorb everything. So even while the mother's smiling lovingly at the baby and caressing it, the baby's also picking up the emotional undertones of that mother's distrust, of her fear, of her worry, of her, you know, how many mothers, they worry about the baby, they worry, oh, the poor baby, how am I going to keep it safe? Oh, do you think the baby's not sucking all that up? Where do babies learn fear? You know, it's well known. Where do babies learn fear of dogs? If you find a child frightened of dogs, you usually find a parent who is frightened of dogs. Usually, not always, but usually the parent is frightened of dogs. Where do children learn to be frightened of a spider, frightened of a worm, frightened of something like that? Because someone's put that in their head. They don't come along with that fear in them.
Go further than that. The child sees dad coming home from work, sees dad going to work, sees mum needing dad to do that so mum can have the money. So what does she see? What is the baby absorbing? All that, observing the uncertainty. Dad doesn't go to work, he'll have no money, he can't have food, water, shelter. Then mum needs to have all things dad's doing, because then otherwise I don't have food, water, shelter. Now this is all subliminal, but the emotions are there, and the child is picking up all the power of the subjugation of the dark side that's making mum and dad go to work, take the kid to preschool, and do all the rituals that are what a mother does in suburban or city apartment life or whatever. And the child is sucking all that in. And so that subjugation has become the undercurrents of the dark side, right? It's that stuff I was telling you about. The child thinks that all of this is part of reality. It's part of its life. It's part of the big picture of its life.
It's who it is.
So, like I said, if you can accept the concept of one God, you can accept one man ruling you. Exactly. If you accept the subjugation of your dad going to work to make money, you can accept the uncertainty of your dad not having food, water, shelter, because it's controlled by other men and women dictating to the dad, who if he doesn't, can't have food, water, shelter, provide. But then comes all the stresses and all the other pressures that the family goes through that the child has to suck up as well, you know. And then all this dark side then played up with the siblings, because they go to school and all the shit, and then you know, if they're put in front of television and video or whatever else they're put in front, or plastic things like over the crib and in artificial homes, and we talked about, you know,
and they get so and like sticking them in front of the TV and in front of movies. I was brought up without TV, and I didn't have our children in front of the television when they were young, like not for years. We never just put it on. He'd watch the football sometimes, but we never had the TV on as a thing, and I never let them watch movies, because I would look at these movies for children and I see so many themes in there that are just terrifying for young children, I think. And I would notice other children who were exposed to that sort of thing, how what's the word, desensitized they became. Like, sometimes if they showed my children a movie in school, and they would be like, they'd come home and they'd be terrified of it because of the themes that were in there, because they hadn't been exposed to it. Other kids, it's just like they wouldn't even notice. They've already got desensitized to those sort of themes, to all the undertones of this, so they're not even noticing, and then they don't even notice the effect it has on them throughout their lives, and how it plays out everywhere in their lives. But I was thinking, when we're talking food, water, land, shelter, now if you want to look at what is of the darkness and what is not in the system, it's very easy. Everything that is freely available to us, such as social media, communications, all that sort of stuff, phones, technology, this isn't, it's easy to get. Everyone can get them these days. Most people can get a car. I'm talking first world, like Western world. Most people can get a car. Anything that's really freely available, you can get it, that it's supporting the darkness. Land, food, water, shelter, all controlled. All we have to work our asses off for years and years just to keep land, food, water, and shelter available to our families. So that shows you very clearly that is that's where our freedom lies. They have to keep that so under wraps, because if we're allowed to just go onto a piece of land, but not harming anyone by going on this piece of land and start co-creating, we will very soon not be interested in everything else they're offering us. So that's why that is under so tightly under wraps. Land, food, water, shelter. And notice what else is freely available: fast food, Coca-Cola, alcohol, drugs, cigarettes, everything that is
Woolworths, the fresh food people.
Yeah, everything that is going to harm us is freely and easily and readily available and cheap. That which we truly need and which is our true path to freedom, land, food, water, shelter, very
exclusivity
hard,
and
very
privilege
hard
to a
get.
tiny few who get access to all the best quality of everything, just as an analogy, while the greater population don't. So that plays out the psyops, or the dark side of uncertainty, distrust, fear, doubt, confusion, and again, subjugation. So the dark side is in power. So we act as the slaves of the dark side. You see, because without us playing it, there would be no dark side. But because we've accepted it, like we've accepted the one God, we accept the one man, and we accept this being in the religion of the one God, of the one man's power and authority as an administrator, we can accept a host or a plethora of men and women who have subjugation as their power. So they all live in the shit of distrust and doubt and uncertainty and confusion, and with it all the other stuff of pettiness and greed and selfishness and power control trips and arguments, and and look at all the divorce cases. Look at just the extent and what happens to children and what happens to men and women and in these horrific situations. All of this needs to be played out to maintain subjugation of the dark side, because while we are the dark side playing out that emotion, we need the whole system, because it's the only place where it can be staged. It can't be staged in nature, because in nature no one's interested in all the dark side because they don't even know what it is, and they'll never know what it is.
It's interesting how we'll say, like, the system's really a mirror of nature, a mirror of reality. If we say freedom is land, food, water, shelter, those at the very top of the pinnacle of the system have made themselves a fake freedom, because they never have to worry about land, food, water, shelter. They have access to all the resources they could want. They have, they claim ownership of vast amounts of land. They never even think about food, because it's provided for them. They never even have to think about water or anything like that. They can spend years, generations of those families just working on the grand plan of the system, because they never have to worry about land, food, water, shelter like the rest of us way down the tree who have to. It's a constant battle. But you see how it's all a fake freedom, because their freedom for land, food, water, shelter is all based on squashing everybody else beneath them out of that freedom and using them to keep providing them with all their free land, food, water, shelter. So again, it's a total mirror of what it really is. If we all went, hey, we live on, the earth is a very big place. There's more than enough room for all of us to have our space in our communities for our family if we're not greedy. And there's more than enough room for us to grow the food we need, work with the people around us in sharing our food and growing and building our homes and supporting each other. There's more than enough room. But the fake freedom of the system is designed so only a very few can enjoy it. Only a very few can have that level where those people never have to get out of bed wondering where they're going to pay the next bill, or wondering how they're going to pay the mortgage, or how they're going to get food on the table. It's not even an issue, but it's that mirror of the reality of there is magnificent abundance for all of us on this earth if we create it, as opposed to they've created a fake abundance of, they've got abundance of all the wealth of the system, but it's based on a slave system, and without that slave system underneath, they haven't got that fake freedom.
What it takes a team effort to create subjugation. It's a team effort. That's what the dark side is. But it also takes a team effort to create magnificence. It's just a change in the way approach and how we behave. So we just got to recognize the emotions. So so that we recognize the emotions of distrust, but we don't play the game. We don't get caught up in it, but we don't react and feed it. We just say, okay, thank you for your offer. Thank you, you're there. Just let it be there. Don't have to fight it, but focus on the magnificence where trust operates. So if you are operating in a team effort of trust, do you realize you don't need another man in your life? As even beyond the horizons that you can't even see. You don't need anyone. You don't need authority. You don't need government. You don't need anyone, because you are it. You're it. And the freedom that expands in that space of your responsibility is even more magnificent than the oak tree. And the more you hold that trust, the more you be that, the more you operate in the certainty, the more that you operate in co-creation, and you're not thinking about self. Remember, just explain this again. I use these couple of analogies. One is the sun. Now, the sun is radiating. That magnificence is shining everywhere. That's the same as nature. Nature is radiating. It's because everything lives for the bigger picture. Now, if the sun decided to become self-centered and start thinking for itself, and it doesn't want to longer hold the big picture, then every ray that it's radiating starts turning back around to self. Because now it's about what's in it for me. It's mine and I and all that. So if the sun did that, where once there was this amazing brilliance, now is nothing. A black hole of nothing. And that's the dark side. So if we hold the living dream of life and we operate through the good heart, we don't need the Pied Pipers and their manipulation playing out in our heads anymore. We don't need to follow along in the bouncing ball of everything of the bad guys and the good guys, who all come from the same societies and lodges and fraternities of the good guys, the bad guys. They all come out of the same scam because they got to create the duality in our imagining and manipulate us to play it. And that's those B-52 bombers coming over with the sirens going, and we all get sucked into it. And we've been practicing it so much for so long. So if we can just hold the trust, the certainty, and we are that sun that's shining. As far as we can hold the dream of life, there's no other man that we need as government or authority or enforcement. It's gone.
You know,
because we're it.
If you and I make sure that Arthur's taken care of, and Arthur and I make sure that you're taken care of, and you and Arthur make sure that I'm taken care of, we're all taken care of. But none of us have to focus on you know, what is it, me, and how I'm on. None of us have to focus on us and me and I and what I need and what I, because it's all taken care of.
Yes, yeah. You get that the self-obsession plays out, the emotion of all this plays out.
Yeah.
You get that, you comprehend, because the self-obsession is the ego, the fake, which was formed out of distrust. It was formed out of uncertainty. It was formed out of fear. It was formed out of everything because we needed something we now doubt that we have. So we don't longer think. We think we need to have government to give us freedom, that we need the police to provide order, that we need the law, we need the court system to provide justice, you know, and on it goes. But look at this world we're living in. Look what's actually happening. We're all landlocked from nature. Yet 99% of all of us, you've got to remember this. It is a scam because 99% of all of us, it's just a generalizing. We do not commit crimes. We don't injure other people. We don't use and abuse other people. But most of us are just simple people because we just want to live simple, magnificent lives. So the whole system is about siphoning everything of that. So we're left with scarcity, and we're left with confusion and doubt and distrust and uncertainty and fear. So then we play out against each other for the crumbs that fall off the table of our slave masters. We fight for what our best position can be. So we need to go to university, send our kids to get titles and standing so they have some status. But this dark side is present everywhere because we are driven from that dark side. We're driven from that darkness. Do you follow?
Graduated thieves and murderers.
Into whatever. So what I'm getting at, 99% of most of us are not like that. We're just being compromised. we're being compromised, and so we can make mistakes. But most of us are not murderers. Most of us are not those kind of harm doers. Most of us don't have time to sit there and malevolently create plots and plan to cause mayhem in other people's lives. We're just too busy trying to live, trying to be parents and try to do things and raise kids and be with grandchildren and all that. And I see that in the Wogville that I grew up in, and I see it in all the other Wogvilles all around me and all the other ethnicities, and that most people are just too busy. They just want to keep their lives simple and private. Nothing wrong about any of that. It's just this intrusion of the dark side in them and of them that they don't recognize, where this darkness plays out, because everybody needs everyone who's living with the darkness needs the whole system of that darkness to play out the darkness in their lives, in suburbia, in the cities and everything else. So you've got to step back to a bigger picture and say, I don't want to play these scripts anymore. I don't want these men and women in my head anymore. I'm not going to jump through their hoops anymore. I'm not going to be manipulated. So if you become fearless, and you no longer can be manipulated by fear. Now you are those Christians in the Colosseum. Now you can do anything. And it doesn't matter about death anymore. You do what you got to do because you're living the truth of who you are. And that is where they are destroyed. And that's how you end it all. Because eventually, even if some of us get taken down, it's irrelevant. What kind of way of life do you want to create? And if you know who you are, you come back as those kids in that paradise of that co-creation to expand the dream further. You see, because we hold that dream, because we are that magnificent dream. So it's not about dying. And so I say to you, all of you who come from the Christian world and the Muslim worlds and all that, when you're looking at that great man on the cross, he's saying to you, don't you want magnificence? Don't you want life? Well, they're crucifying and torturing this guy. This is all of us. We're all butchered on the cross of this duality. Right? And if you look at the pentagram, I'll show you, I'll add all the extra pictures to this video, Janik. It'll probably make it an extra 20 minutes longer or whatever when we put it up. But you'll see what I'm talking about, because we get off the cross because we need the wood. We don't need to, we don't need to be on the cross anymore, We don't need to be nailed because we need the nail. We need the steel of those nails to use it to build the system. To build the bridge out of the system back across the kingdom, and then let it all go and be recycled, and no more manufacturing of that stuff. So we have to have the courage.
Thanks, guys. Thanks, but I have to go past my time a lot.
That's all right.
So thank you very much again. It was very complete. It was very enriching as always, and I really.
You can find us through the website, The Love for Life. I'll put that in the about section of this video, and you can put it up and people can find you with your website. But it's living now. It's doing it.
Yeah.
We have
Here
to.
and now.
So those who want to work together and do something, you start doing it, already doing it, and just focus on that.
So thanks a lot, Arthur and Fiona, and thanks everyone watching and in the chat. Igor, Branch, Craftsman, that way. Thanks a lot, everyone, and we will see you again soon.
Okay.
Thank you.
All the best.
Bye.
All right.
Bye.
See ya.